What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about how to achieve anything by being delusional. Denzel Washington said, "It's easy to spot a red car when you're always thinking of a red car. Easy to spot an opportunity when you're always thinking of an opportunity. Easy to spot reasons to be mad when you're always thinking of being mad. You become what you constantly think about. Watch yourself." In this overview, we're looking at why realistic things keep you broke, redefining delusion, the pre-proof state, the winner effect, the loser effect, real examples, how to rig your own fights and manufacture confidence, finally the review, and your action items. Why realistic thinking keeps you broke. Being realistic sounds reasonable, right? It feels grown up, sensible, safe. That's exactly why it's dangerous. Realism is just fear wearing a mask of logic. We're able to convince ourselves that this is something we should be doing. It tells us to be smart when it really means stay small. And the most striking part is that people who live by realism end up with a very predictable, comfortable life. Comfortable, but completely forgettable. Realism and being realistic didn't begin as a mindset. It was something that people used to survive. Early humans needed it to avoid dying in dumb ways. Don't chase a tiger, don't jump off a cliff, don't test poison berries. It made sense. But we're not dodging these things anymore. We're not living based off survival, yet we're still operating based off the same code. The realist mindset can only calculate from previous data. It has no formula for new behavior, fresh courage, or creativity. Stats are built from the past, meaning your next move doesn't belong to the past. When you try to force more resistance, you create. But when you are, things come to you without struggle because you just are them. Now, let's look at the historical proof. Every world changer and every person that did something great was considered insane before achieving it. Now, this is what I call the disconnect between results and beforehand, the idea. We look at people like Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. These guys were called crazy until they weren't. And so we need to be comfortable with this crazy until you're not mindset. When we look at the 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister ran this in 1954, and within 46 days, something that was once considered inconceivable was now being replicated. If we look at the BlackBerry, executives dismissed the iPhone as impractical because their data showed professionals didn't like the touchscreen. They relied on past behavior and missed what was coming in the future. In 2007, Netflix executives began shifting from DVD rentals to streaming, despite analysts insisting consumers preferred physical media. They weren't able to see the future. When Airbnb launched, hotel industry experts dismissed the idea that people would let strangers stay in their home. The same with Uber. These are the problems that we run into. We miss opportunities when we just look at the past instead of projecting into what could be. You'll notice too that people who criticize and call others unrealistic rarely create anything themselves. They just measure what already exists because that's the only ground they trust. And this is where it gets sneaky. Realism whispers through logic. It says, be practical, or that's statistically unlikely. But stats lie and are built from the past. Now our brain has this filter. Once you start seeing realism for what it is, as a filter, not a fact, you'll see it everywhere. You hear it when you downplay an idea before you even get to test it. You'll hear it when your friend is telling you, I wouldn't try that because so-and-so. Now, when you start noticing this, just notice what happens next. Your energy drops, the nervous system chooses to be safe over to venture out and try something new, but this is your body literally shutting down possibility before you even try. Now, the brain builds reality through selective attention. It doesn't show you the world, it shows you what matches your internal map of the world. If your map says ordinary, your brain will literally delete extraordinary options before you can even see them. It's basic neuroscience. The reticular activating system works like a filter, only letting in thoughts that fit your dominant expectations. And so, sort of in line with what Denzel Washington is saying, when we have this attention and when we have something top of mind, that's what comes into the subconscious, and that's what operates us. So there's a common example with a car. When you buy a new car or when you buy new shoes, you begin to notice them everywhere. Now, we need to redefine what delusion actually is. This is the pre-proof state. This is what we need to get comfortable doing. So being delusional isn't always a flaw. Sometimes it's the highest performing mental state you can actually enter. There's this irrational confidence that all high performers end up leveraging. It lets you move faster, decide cleaner, execute harder, logic than ever would. I'm not talking about pretending to be something you're not. This is using belief as a tool. Logic slows movement because it waits for certainty. Strategic delusion speeds it up because it acts before certainty exists. And you can train yourself to access that state at will. Now, the human brain isn't designed to act under uncertainty. It's designed to conserve energy. When you're unsure, your mind hesitates, analyzes, delays. The result is paralysis disguised as caution. That's where strategic delusion comes in. You use irrational confidence as fuel to override hesitation. And we begin to create this chemical cocktail within the brain. When you decide something with absolute conviction, even if that conviction is manufactured, your brain releases a chemical cocktail that mirrors this confidence. Dopamine spikes, cortisol drops, motor cortex activates more efficiently. You move smoother, think faster, feel lighter. Irrational confidence literally changes your physiology in real time. Now, we've all heard of placebo, and commonly the placebo effect, where belief itself becomes a powerful catalyst for physiological change. Now, in every single study that you've ever read, they always have a placebo control group. This is literally proof to us that even with nothing changed except for the idea that something has changed, there's real change happening. There's literally clinical studies where patients were explicitly told they were receiving sugar pills with no active ingredients, and they still experience significant improvements. This suggests that belief doesn't require deception. Your conscious mind can acknowledge something isn't real while your body still responds as though it was. The mere ritual of taking action creates physiological change. You can tell yourself, I'm choosing to believe this temporarily as a performance tool and still get the benefits of heightened capability. Now, we can also use delusion as a performance enhancer, which is really probably what most of us are after. This is like caffeine for your decision-making system. Sharpens commitment, removes hesitation. When you step into this mental frame, you're playing the game by probabilities, and you start playing by momentum. That's what makes it strategic. We all have cognitive bias. We've heard of optimism bias, illusion of control, confirmation bias. These are presented as flaws, but if you flip them, they become performance enhancements. Expecting success makes you take actions that make success more likely. This is a positive feedback loop and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, control is something else that we can leverage. Believing we have the influence over your outcomes pushes you to adjust micro behaviors that other people ignore. These micro adjustments compound into real control. When you assume you'll find proof, you start noticing it everywhere. When you assume you're right, you begin to look for ways to confirm that bias. Now, how do we use this deliberately? You want to build what I call confidence rituals. These are small physical mental triggers that push you into irrational certainty on command. Confidence isn't an emotion, it's a physiological condition. If you can trigger the state, you can trigger the results. So you need to pick something tangible to cue this confidence to. A song, a scent, a breath, pattern, something. When we go into the gym and we have a good outfit, we have good music, we feel this confidence. This could be our anchor. Then you need to believe and embody it. Stand differently, speak louder, look people in the eye. Body sends message to the brain. The brain sends message to the body. It's all connected. It's all one system. The more you behave confidently, the more your brain mirrors it chemically. Strategic delusion isn't about denial, it's about amplification. You're amplifying the signal of belief until your system starts believing its own broadcast. If you stay in that state long enough, momentum takes over. Once motion begins, you don't need delusion anymore. This is like faking it till you make it. And yes, this is scientific. That's why everybody says it. Each successful repetition trains your brain that irrational confidence is safe and useful. Over time, that becomes your new default. You'll notice something fascinating once you start doing this. You'll feel like you're ahead of the timeline because most people require validation, but once you realize the unfair advantage this gives you, you'll far exceed the competition. Feedback creates data, data creates mastery. You'll always learn faster than if you're conscious. So this is the self-delusion trap, where you need to actually activate delusion. Once you have the delusion and you back it up with the reps, you get the results, then you're proved correct. Everybody's delusional until they're not. That's what you need to accept. So once you're fine with being delusional, you can move on to the next step. The next necessary thing to look into is what's called the winner effect. This is what science and mice show us about success. Scientists took mice and staged fights. They rigged fights so certain mice would consistently win. After several rigged victories, something remarkable happened. These winning mice experienced measurable biological changes that had nothing to do with the actual fighting skill. Now, what did they notice? Testosterone increased. Dopamine receptors became more sensitive. Brain structure was actually changed. Confidence became biochemical, not just psychological. This wasn't motivation or mindset. This was literally rewiring at the cellular level. So how does this happen? Now, each win made the mice more likely to win, not because of skill improvement, but because of neurological rewiring. The mice started winning even against stronger opponents. Their bodies and brains had been programmed for victory through nothing but a pattern of early success. Now, the winner effect is a documented phenomenon in neuroscience. When you win, your brain releases testosterone and dopamine. These chemicals don't just make you feel good, they change how your brain processes future challenges. You become more willing to take risks, more aggressive in competition, and more confident in your abilities. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between real wins and manufactured ones. Early victories, even small ones, even if they're rigged, create biological foundation for future success. Success breeds success, not through magic, but through measurable physiological changes. And if you look at boxing, this is why athletes who win their first few matches often go on winning streaks. It's why underdogs who get early momentum can be the upset favorites. The body doesn't care about the quality of win, it tracks the pattern. In business, this is why your first few clients matter so much. Not for the money, but for the programming. This is why the concept of momentum is so important. Because when we're able to capture this win streak, this momentum, this inertia, we're able to leverage it into actual confidence, which then lead to actual results, and we begin to create this flywheel of self-perpetuation. So you don't need to wait for real confidence, you can manufacture it through strategic early wins. Your body will respond to these as if those were wins earned through years of mastery. This is the secret behind every overnight success. They rigged early fights so that they could win later actual meaningful fights. Once the winner effect kicks in, momentum becomes self-sustaining. You start seeing opportunities other people miss. You take shots other people won't. You recover from setbacks faster because your baseline expectation is victory, not defeat. Now, this winner effect, just like everything else in the universe, has an opposite, which is called the loser effect. And this is how early failures can program people for mediocrity. And honestly, this happens to everyone. This can be in separate domains. When scientists rigged fights for mice to lose, these mice experienced the opposite. These mice became more submissive. They became meek. They became less confident. So the effects were even stronger than the winner effect, which means a loss can offset a win more so than that win can offset the loss. Testosterone decreased, stress hormones remained elevated, neural pathways associated with defeat were strengthened. When they were matched against weaker opponents, they would lose at a higher rate. Even though they weren't outmatched, they simply had this pattern of losing. Now, why is this? Well, just like with the winner effect, when our brain is able to recognize a pattern, we're more likely to fall in line with the pattern. So these early defeats can create neurological expectations of failure. Your brain and your body start operating from a baseline of defeat. This is what your body begins to expect. This is what scientists dub learned helplessness. And this is a psychological term that with enough defeats, you stop even trying before success becomes possible. And this is the trap that so many of us are stuck in. Most people experience early failures without context. They try to start a new business and it fails. They ask someone out, get rejected. They attempt a new skill and embarrass themselves. Each failure gets logged as evidence of inadequacy. People internalize this as evidence. The nervous system begins to log this as someone who you are. It begins to track it as an attribute of yourself, not simply a past historical event. Future attempts are sabotaged before even beginning. You procrastinate, self-sabotage, or simply don't try as hard because your body is trying to protect you from the pain of another defeat. As you guys can see, this becomes a spiral. Just like with the winner effect, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Into a positive flywheel, this is a negative flywheel. Each defeat makes the next defeat more likely. Not because you're actually getting worse, but because you're mentally and therefore biologically getting worse. And you're fitting into this form of a loser. But there's hope, and there's ways to break the pattern. You can think your way out of the loser effect. Just how you got into the loser effect, you can get out of the loser effect. You have to create new biological evidence through action. Small wins interrupt the pattern and begin rewiring the system. This is why fake it till you make it doesn't work, but rig it till you make it does. Now, what does that mean? One small win interrupts the pattern. 2 small wins start building new neural pathways. 3 small wins begin shifting your biochemistry. By the time you stack 10 wins in a row, your nervous system starts to expect success instead of failure. If you don't deliberately engineer early wins, random early losses will program you. Your current realistic assessment of your abilities might just be the loser effect talking. And so if you leave things up to chance or probabilities, not even the best winners are going to win at a high clip. But if you're able to manufacture these wins so that you win a disproportionate amount of time, then you're going to actually begin to create this winner effect. And so if we look at some real examples, Conor McGregor, who's now a billionaire, understood this instinctively. He talked like a multimillionaire before he had any money. He acted like a champion before he had the belt. He told the world he would knock people out in specific rounds, and then he did it. When he was on welfare living in his parents' house, he said, "I see myself with the belt. There's no way I don't have it." That's not confidence based on evidence. That's what most people would call delusion, and that's what I call strategic delusion. He believed it so strongly that reality bent to match. He wasn't lying to himself, he was programming himself. Every time he declared his future success, he was triggering the winner effect in his own nervous system. His body started producing the biochemistry of a champion before he ever became one. Muhammad Ali declared, "I am the greatest," before he ever became champion. He said it while nobody knew him. Then he waited for victory, and once victory came, nobody was calling him crazy anymore. He didn't say, "I want to become the greatest," or "I hope I'll be the greatest." He said, "I am," present tense. He was convinced. He was convinced, and other people were also convinced that he was delusional. But the man with the conviction that won ended up being right. And because he had the winning conviction, nobody was calling him crazy. The same happened with Steve Jobs. His team said he had a reality distortion field. He would insist on doing impossible things, ridiculous timelines, unrealistic goals. Somehow, everybody else thought it couldn't be done. But then, Steve, through his conviction, was able to make it happen. Same thing can be seen in Elon Musk. In 2000, Elon Musk began his interest in space exploration. He wanted to make humans an interplanetary species. Talk about something delusional. Employees saw him reading rocket books and engine manuals during breaks at PayPal. I mean, what kind of ridiculous, lofty goal is this? I want to take humans into space and become an interplanetary species. I mean, talk about delusion. But now, people aren't really saying that anymore. They're saying, well, this guy's halfway there. He's already sending stuff to the moon and back. He's already doing rockets and having them land hundreds of times. He's actually getting there. So you see, you need the delusion, and then afterwards, that delusion paves way for you to actually gain the confidence and the confidence, in turn, the results. So now that we understand this principle, how do we rig fights and manufacture confidence, which can then in turn lead to results? So we want to start with easy wins. You're not going to start with your biggest goal, because when you set a big goal like I want to become a millionaire and then you don't hit it, then you have the loser effect. But when you start with something easy, that's how you can begin to stack things up. So stack small victories deliberately. Your nervous system doesn't care if the wins are big or small, not fully, but it's tracking this pattern. The 90% rule says that design challenges you're 90% certain you can complete. Not 100%, because that's too easy and won't trigger the reward. That would be like, I'm gonna brush my teeth tomorrow. That's such an easy goal that once we hit it, we're not really proud. 50% is too risky, but 90% is a sweet spot. And so if that's going to the gym every day for a month, that's in your control. What's the likelihood you'll hit it? That's up for you. But if you can hit that 90% sweet spot, then you're in a good place to manufacture these small early wins. If you're paralyzed and you're stuck, you don't know what to do, make the action smaller. Do one push-up, write one ugly line, wash one dish. The power isn't the size. The thing that we're looking after is momentum. The first rep is always the hardest. Once you do one push-up, doing 10 becomes easier. Once you write one sentence, writing a paragraph flows naturally. The action itself generates the energy to continue. This is something that once you're able to realize and harness, just starting becomes the hardest part. Continuing becomes much easier. We can also build rituals. We can create physical or mental triggers that push you into irrational certainty on command. Pick a song, a scent, a breath. We talked about this with the gym. This is our anchor. We're creating a Pavlovian biological response in our nervous system. Just like dogs would salivate upon a bell instead of the actual treat, we can begin to reprogram and rewire our mind to have certain cues and triggers. Repetition is also important because it strengthens the association until it becomes automatic. After 30 to 40 reps, that's when the trigger will begin to actually skip the required response. After dogs would associate with a bell and a treat, eventually, after a certain amount of reps, you don't need the treat and you can trigger the saliva. So these repetitions and these biological triggers can be manufactured as well. We need to employ this and understand biology to do so. Then we're going to embody the identity. What this means is that we're not just going to say something and say we're going to do something and then not act in alignment with that. We need to stand differently, speak louder, look people in the eye. The body and the brain send messages upwards. When you behave confidently, your brain mirrors it. Research shows that holding power poses for 2 minutes increases testosterone and decreases cortisol. Now, I'm not telling you guys to stand on your hips and say, I'm strong, I am this, but there are studies that show your posture is correlated to your biology and yourself psychologically. So we need to embody the identity, not just physically, but mentally, how we wear, how we dress, how we talk. Our voice, we can speak slow, we can breathe deep. Your voice carries the waveform of your energy. A grounded tone regulates others and increases their receptivity towards you. Reduce your speaking speed by 20% and watch how much more weight your words carry. And so all of this is good and true, but at the end of the day, we still need to collect evidence. Now, we need to look for these tiny confirmations that your new identity just might be true. A compliment, a new idea, a different response. Remember, when we have our attention on something, we're looking for it more often. So if we say we want to be fit, we need to look for signs that, yes, we're acting in accordance with it, but is it working? Do we have this evidence? And we start building up this portfolio of evidence that then we can lean on in hard times to say, look, that's what I'm doing. This is micro proof. This is actually working. Someone smiled at you, that's evidence you're likable. Someone asked your opinion, that's evidence you're valuable. Stack these moments until the new you and this new identity becomes undeniable. And so these evidences towards the positive of who you're trying to become can also work inversely. So we need to protect against people that reinforce your old identity. That can be your environment or people, friends, whatever. Whatever you're around needs to be enforcing, not condemning who you want to be. Then we're going to act before we're ready. Readiness is a myth. Nobody's ever truly ready. They're ready in the mind before they're ready in real world. Movement creates readiness, not the other way around. Each time you override hesitation, you prove to your nervous system that action is safe. The gap between decision and movement should shrink to seconds, not days. Make it a rule. When you think of something you should do, you have 5 seconds to start moving it. After 5 seconds, your brain will talk you out of it. This is Mel Robbins' 5-second rules, and it works for a lot of things. If you think you should start running in 5 seconds, you should start figuring out when you're going to run. You should start figuring out your clothes, your shoes, what you're going to do, and when. Don't wait 5 days to start planning out your new running schedule, because then it's never going to happen. Every time you act in spite of fear, you're doing a rep. You're training the muscle of courage. And when you're training this muscle of courage, you're teaching it that when you're afraid of something, it's okay to take a full dive straight at it. And so here's what we have for review. Realistic thinking is a cage built from yesterday's data. Delusion is the pre-proof state where all transformations begin. Your nervous system responds to patterns, not truth. Once you understand this, you can deliberately program yourself for success. Early wins create biological changes that make future wins more likely. Success compounds through measurable physiological shifts, increased testosterone, enhanced dopamine sensitivity, strengthened neural pathways. You can manufacture this effect deliberately through rigged early victories. Early defeats program your nervous system for future failure. This isn't permanent, it's just a pattern that needs interrupting. Small wins begin the rewiring process immediately. 1 win interrupts the pattern, 10 win creates a new baseline. Every major achiever used strategic delusion before evidence was there. They declared, believed, and then became. The world caught up to their internal conviction. Conor McGregor, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they all started with what looked like lies and delusion and turned them into reality through unwavering belief. Rig your own fights through engineered early wins. Build confidence rituals that trigger certainty on command. Collect micro-evidence to stack proof for your new identity. Act before readiness arrives. Lower the bar until action becomes inevitable. Protect the pattern by curating your environment and social circle. Today, choose one identity you want to embody. Write it down as I am blank. Not I want to be blank. Say it out loud, even if it feels like a lie. I am confident. I am charismatic. I am sociable. I am intelligent. These are affirmations because everything starts within the mind. The resistance of you not wanting to say those things is literally your old identity dragging your new one down. Then, this week, you're going to engineer 3 easy wins. 3 challenges you're 90% certain you can do. These should be related to whatever you've just affirmed yourself as. Complete them, document the wins in a journal, in a text to someone. Just collect this evidence. Then you're going to build your confidence ritual. Choose a physical anchor, a song, breath, pattern, posture, phrase, location. Then use it at any moment when you need certainty. Repeat this trigger until it automatically shifts your state. This is ongoing. This isn't something you do for a month, but this is something that you do forever, essentially. Protect this pattern, cut off reasons, evidence, and attention from your old identity. Stop telling yourself stories about who you used to be and surround yourself with people that know you for who you are now. This isn't your past. Protect your future. Act as if your delusion is already true until reality has no choice but to agree. It's not a 30-day challenge. This is a permanent upgrade to your operating system. At the end of the day, you don't get what you want. You get what you are and who you are. And what you are is determined by what you believe about yourself before any evidence exists. So choose your delusion carefully because it's about to become your reality. The world doesn't reward realistic thinking. It rewards those bold enough to believe in something before it exists and committed enough to act on that belief until reality catches up. With that being said, thanks for watching. If you want to work with me on implementing this exact system in your business, book a call from the link in the description. I will catch you guys later. Peace.